300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens first appeared in Africa. The evidence comes from a site called Jebel Irhoud in present-day Morocco. The skulls found there show a mix of modern and ancient features, a face closer to ours than anything before it, but not fully finished evolving. This marks the earliest known chapter of our species. At that time, Africa was not empty of other humans. Several different human species existed simultaneously. Homo erectus had already spread across parts of Asia hundreds of thousands of years ago. Neanderthals were established across Europe and the Near East. Denisovans, a lesser-known group identified mainly through DNA rather than complete skeletons, occupied parts of Asia, first discovered through a single finger bone found in Denisova cave in Siberia. Our species was simply one branch among several. Nothing guaranteed it would be the one that survived. For roughly 200,000 years, Homo sapiens remained largely confined to Africa. Fossil evidence from sites like Omo Kibish and Herto in Ethiopia, dated between 195,000 and 160,000 years ago, shows increasingly modern anatomy. Behavior was changing too. Archaeological sites from this period show early symbolic thinking. Ochre pigment used for decoration, shell beads used as ornaments, complex tools requiring multiple production steps. These are the first fingerprints of modern human cognition, long before any large-scale migration began.
The major expansion out of Africa happened later, and evidence points to a critical window between roughly 70,000 and 60,000 years ago. During this period, sea levels were lower due to glaciation, and the distance across the southern Red Sea, near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, would have been narrow enough to cross without advanced boats. A relatively small population made this crossing. Genetic studies estimate that every person outside Africa today descends from this limited founding group, a fact confirmed through decades of research, including foundational work by geneticist Rebecca Cann, whose 1987 mitochondrial DNA study traced modern human ancestry back to a single African origin point, a discovery that reshaped the entire field of human evolutionary genetics. Once outside Africa, the migration split along multiple routes. One path followed the southern coastline of Asia, moving through the Arabian Peninsula, into India, and along the coast of Southeast Asia. This coastal route allowed relatively fast movement, since coastal environments offered similar food sources at each stage of the journey, reducing the need to adapt to entirely new conditions all at once. By around 65,000 years ago, and possibly earlier depending on the site, humans had reached Australia. This required crossing open water, even at the lowest Ice Age sea levels, meaning some form of seafaring technology already existed at this early date. Archaeological sites in northern Australia, including Medjed Bebe, have produced dates supporting this early arrival, making the settlement of Australia one of the most remarkable achievements in early human history.
A separate branch moved north and west into the Near East and eventually into Europe. Humans arrived in Europe by around 45,000 years ago. Europe at that time was already inhabited by Neanderthals, who had lived there for over 300,000 years. The two populations overlapped for thousands of years, and genetic evidence proves they interbred. In 2010, a team led by geneticist Svante Pääbo successfully sequenced the Neanderthal genome for the first time, a landmark achievement in ancient DNA research. The results showed that most populations outside Africa today carry between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA, direct physical proof of contact between the two groups tens of thousands of years ago. Neanderthals went extinct roughly 40,000 years ago. The exact cause remains debated among researchers, including paleoanthropologist Chris Stringer, whose decades of work on the out-of-Africa model helped establish the timeline of modern human expansion and the decline of other human species. Leading theories include competition for shared resources, smaller and more fragile Neanderthal population sizes, and rapid climate fluctuations near the end of the last ice age. What is certain is that Homo sapiens continued expanding, while Neanderthal populations steadily contracted and eventually disappeared entirely. Contact was not limited to Neanderthals. Genetic studies show that populations in Southeast Asia, Papua New Guinea, and parts of the Pacific carry measurable amounts of Denisovan DNA, indicating that modern humans also interbred with this separate group somewhere across Asia. This suggests multiple overlapping populations of different human species coexisted with modern humans at various points during this expansion, not just in one location, but across several regions of the ancient world at once.
Migration into colder regions of Asia continued as well, pushing populations into Siberia, an environment that demanded advanced clothing, controlled fire use, and cooperative hunting strategies to survive extreme winters. This adaptation set the stage for the next major phase of expansion. During the height of the last ice age, sea levels dropped enough to expose a land bridge connecting Siberia to Alaska, known as Beringia. Sometime between roughly 20,000 and 15,000 years ago, human populations crossed this land bridge into North America. Some researchers argue for earlier coastal migration routes along the Pacific Rim, and this remains an active area of ongoing scientific debate. But the Beringia crossing represents the primary and best supported pathway, according to current evidence. Once in the Americas, the pace of expansion was extremely fast by historical standards. Within a few thousand years, human populations moved through North America, into Central America, and all the way to the southern tip of South America, near modern-day Chile, with well-documented sites like Monte Verde dating to around 14,500 years ago. This means 2 entire continents were settled corner to corner in a remarkably short span of geological and even historical time.
The final major phase of global human expansion involved the Pacific Islands. Remote locations such as Hawaii, New Zealand, and Easter Island remained unsettled until far more recently, generally within the last 1,000 to 3,000 years. These islands were reached by Polynesian voyagers using advanced navigation techniques, including reading star positions, ocean swell patterns, and bird flight paths, allowing them to cross thousands of miles of open ocean without any instruments at all. By the time this expansion was complete, Homo sapiens had settled every habitable continent on Earth, a process that took roughly 250,000 years from the first appearance of the species in Africa to the final Pacific migrations many thousands of years later. Every population alive today, regardless of geography, climate, or appearance, traces back to that same African origin point, a conclusion confirmed repeatedly through fossil evidence, archaeological sites, and increasingly precise genetic research from labs around the world. This is the complete established timeline. Origin in Africa nearly 300,000 years ago, expansion beginning roughly 60 to 70,000 years ago, contact and interbreeding with both Neanderthals and Denisovans across different regions of Asia and Europe, a land bridge crossing into the Americas near the end of the last ice age, and a final wave of long-distance ocean voyaging that closed the map completely. One species, one continuous, unbroken journey. Every person alive on Earth today is a living result of it.